The cry came sharp through the trees. High, wild, near human, but twisted with pain. Elias Boone froze mid-step, the butt of his rifle wedged against his shoulder, finger-tight on the trigger. The call echoed again, low this time, as if something tried to choke it back. He swept his eyes across the narrow canyon. Snow patched the high grass, and the wind tasted like iron. He shifted downhill, moving slow, boots silent, over frozen moss and rock. His breath came slow and shallow. He didn't blink. The sound came again. He followed it. Down past the black pine bend where old cougar tracks split from deer, Elias saw the trail. Faint blood on bark, a snapped-off arrow shaft buried in the mud. And then the trap. She lay on her side, curled like a wounded doe, dark braid tangled in pine needles, skin slick with sweat. A rusted bear trap bit deep in her calf, the jagged iron slick with blood. Her eyes met his. Elias lowered the rifle, but didn't speak. Her chest rose and fell, breath shallow. She was young. Not a girl, but not far from it. Cheekbones high, nose crooked from an old break. She wore a torn deerskin shirt and no shoes. He stepped forward. She flinched. Elias stopped, looked down at the trap, then at the girl. Her eyes didn't leave his, but she gave the faintest nod. That was enough. He crouched beside her, fingers steady despite the cold. He pulled a folded iron pry from his coat pocket, jammed it into the spring, and with one grunt, forced the jaws apart. The metal snapped back with a shriek, and her scream punched the air like gunfire. She writhed, fists clenched, mouth twisted, but didn't cry again. Elias reached into his coat, pulled a cloth pouch, unwrapped strips of cotton, and tied the leg tight. Blood soaked through instantly. She spoke a word, two maybe, in Comanche. Elias looked her in the eyes. Don't speak. He lifted her slow. She was lighter than she looked, bones and fire and pain. As he stepped uphill with her in his arms, the storm rolled in behind them. By the time the cabin came into view, sleet needled his face, and the wind howled like wolves across the ridge. The horses whinnied under the overhang. Smoke rose thin from the chimney. He kicked the door with his heel. It opened. "Papa," came the small voice from inside. "Is that you?" Elias stepped in, shoulders hunched. The firelight flickered orange over the log walls. "It's me," he said. The girl on the cot sat up. Her eyes, though open, didn't move. Her hands reached toward the sound. Elias set the wounded woman down on the bed across the room. She moaned, half conscious. Lena's voice wavered. "Who's that?" "Someone hurt," Elias said. He crossed to the shelf, grabbed his knife and kettle, and dropped herbs into boiling water. Lena stood, hand brushing the edge of the table as she moved. She stopped near the stranger, nose twitching. "She smells like smoke and cedar." Elias didn't answer. He turned back, pressed a cup to the Comanche woman's lips. She drank weakly. Elias dipped a rag in hot water, wrung it out, and cleaned the blood. The wound was deep, bone close to the surface. Infection would set in by morning if he didn't burn it. She stirred again, trying to speak. Elias leaned down. "Don't. Rest." She looked past him, not at him, but through him, as if hearing something deeper. Lena reached out. Her hand found the woman's shoulder. The woman twitched, then stilled. "She's afraid," Lena whispered. Elias returned to the fire, poked the iron poker into the coals. Sparks leapt. The poker glowed orange. He turned back, mouth a grim line. The girl looked at him. "You gonna do it?" He nodded. She nodded too. "I'll count." He pressed the red metal against the wound. The hiss and scream filled the room at once. The woman thrashed, fists clenching the blanket but didn't pull away. "One." "Hey," Lena counted softly. When it was done, the woman lay still. Elias sat back, sweat on his forehead. Outside, the storm passed. Quiet fell heavy. Lena leaned her head toward the woman. "What's her name?" She didn't say. "Will she stay?" Elias looked at the woman. She was asleep now, breathing shallow, body taut even in rest. He didn't answer. That night, Elias sat by the fire long after Lena went to sleep. The flames danced low. Outside, the wind moved through the pines like whispering ghosts. He stared at the bear trap, lying in the corner by the door. Blood dried on its teeth. The woman hadn't come from nowhere. and neither had the trap. Wind slammed against the cabin walls like fists. Inside, the woman stirred, sweat slick on her brow, eyes half-lidded but alert. She reached for her leg, fingers brushing the rough bandages, then stiffened at the sound of movement. Across the room, Lena sat on the floor, spine straight, listening to the fire crackle. "You're awake," the girl said softly. No answer. Only breathing, controlled, measured. Lena cocked her head. "I can hear your heartbeat." Still no response. "I'm blind," Lena said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "But you already knew that, didn't you?" The woman turned her head. Her hand moved slowly to her chest, fingers tracing the edge of a beaded necklace. Lena shifted forward, one hand gliding across the floor for balance. "Papa says not to speak to strangers, but you don't feel like a stranger." The wind howled again, louder now, as if something outside pressed close. Elias stepped in from the side door, coat dripping, rifle slung low across his back. "She shouldn't be talking," he said, voice flat. "She's not," Lena answered. "I am." Elias crouched beside the fire, stripping bark into the flame with his knife. Storm blew out the south fence. "Wolves will find the chickens if I don't fix it." "She's scared," Lena said. "I know." He stood. His eyes met the woman's. Not long, not deep, but long enough. "I'll be back before dark." The door shut behind him with a thud. The woman shifted, then reached toward the firelight, hand shaking. Lena moved closer, placed a hand over hers. "Your skin's hot," the girl said, "like a fever dream." The woman leaned in, whispered something in Comanche. The words flowed like wind over water. "I don't understand," Lena said, but it sounded lonely. For a long time, neither of them spoke. That night, Elias stood over the cabin steps, staring out across the dark ridge. His breath curled in the air, rifle tucked in the crook of his arm. A faint glow flickered in the sky, distant and wrong. Not lightning, not firelight. "Smoke." He turned back inside. "She said something," Lena murmured. "I think it was a name." Elias took his coat off, hanging it near the fire. "What name?" "I don't know, but it hurt when she said it." The woman opened her eyes. "Ride soon," she rasped, her throat dry as old leather. Elias brought her a tin cup of boiled water, guided it to her lips. "Who's after you?" Her hand trembled. "Men, not soldiers, not tribe. Worse. Names." She hesitated. "Trent." Elias flinched. "Just barely." "Jed." She nodded. "Hunting women. Burning. Why come this far north?" She didn't answer, but her eyes moved to Lena. Elias stood in silence. Fire popped. A log cracked. Lena felt the tension, her fingers fidgeting with the fringe of her dress. "Papa." "They won't find her here," Elias said, more to himself than to her. The next morning, boot tracks crisscrossed the edge of the eastern slope, fresh, wide, deep. Not his, not hers. 6 men, riding light. By midday, Elias had cleaned the rifle, packed dried meat into a canvas roll, and mounted his saddle. "You going to town?" Lena asked. Elias nodded. "Is it safe?" "No." "Then why?" "Because they'll come anyway." Sonny stood in the doorway, face pale, leaning on the frame for balance. "Don't go alone." Elias looked her over. "You can't even walk yet." "I can kill." Their eyes locked, a flicker of something passing between them. Lena sat on the porch, listening, her small hands twisted into knots. "Don't be long." Elias spurred the horse down the trail, rifle tied to his back. He didn't come back by sundown. That night, Lena lay on the cot, Sonny across the room. Rain beat the roof in uneven bursts. Thunder crept in from the west. "Tell me something," Lena said, voice small. The woman didn't respond. "Anything." After a moment, Sonny spoke, voice quiet but certain. "My name means the second daughter. My mother called me Fire and Shadow." Lena smiled. "That sounds like something Papa would like." Lightning cracked. Sonny's eyes snapped toward the window. Far off, a faint flicker. Then 2 more. Not lightning. Signals. She stood, limping to the window. 3 riders in the distance, just shadows against the rain. One held a torch. One dismounted. Sonny's voice turned to stone. "They found us." She turned to Lena. "Get your shoes. Move." But Papa, now. Sonny pulled Elias's spare revolver from under the table, checked the cylinder. 6 rounds. She grabbed the fire iron, still hot, dipped it into the kettle, and poured steaming water into a skin bag. Lena slid on her boots. We have to find him. We have to survive. The knock came hard, not at the door but the back wall. Lena froze. Sonny moved like wind, pulling the girl behind the stove, crouching low. Another knock, then a voice. Mr. Boone. The tone was mocking. Southern. Too smooth. You left your door unlocked. That's dangerous out here. Bootsteps on the porch. Sonny's jaw clenched. The door creaked open. Where's the old man? The voice drawled. Then a second voice, louder. This the place, Jed? Yup, came the reply. Smells like Comanche to me. Sonny gripped the revolver. The floorboards creaked under their weight. Lena clutched her sleeve. Then a third voice shouted from outside. Hoarse, urgent. Riders coming fast. Jed snarled. What? Hoofbeats thundered. Gunfire cracked. Outside, chaos exploded. Shouting, panic, horses screaming. Sonny burst from hiding, slammed the door shut, dropped the latch. Stay down, she yelled. Outside, a rifle barked, once then again. Then silence. A body hit the wall with a thud. Then boots. Heavy. Familiar. The door opened slow. Elias stood in the frame, soaked in blood and rain, smoke curling from the barrel of his rifle. He looked at Sonny, then at Lena. Next time, he said, voice like gravel, don't open the damn door. Gunpowder hung thick in the morning air, clinging to the pine like smoke on an old sermon. Elias knelt over the corpse of the third raider, hands steady as he rifled through the man's coat. Ammo. Map. 1 silver coin. He dropped it all into the fire. Sonny crouched beside the barn, eyes scanning the tree line. Her leg was still stiff, but she moved like a hunter now, weight balanced, breath slow. She clutched the tomahawk Elias had handed her hours ago. Lena stood behind the water barrel, back to the wall, eyes closed, head tilted slightly. Listening. They're not gone, she whispered. Elias didn't answer. He'd already seen the second set of tracks, fresh, heavier, circling. The 3 last night were scouts. Disposables. The real storm was coming. He rose, slung the long rifle across his shoulder, and locked eyes with Sonny. 2 hours, he said. Maybe less. Sonny nodded once. They moved without speaking. Tripwires along the tree path. Broken glass under the windowsills. Buckshot tied to strings across the front porch. Elias cut slits in the barn wall, facing the ridge, perfect sniper angles. He laid the Sharp's rifle on a crate of salt, loaded each round with care. Lena dragged a blanket and oil lamp into the root cellar, her steps sure even in the dark. I'm not hiding if you're not, she said. Elias paused. You will when I tell you. She nodded. No protest. Sonny limped back inside, hands red from hammering nails into the door. Trent rides with 12. Maybe more. He'll come himself? Elias asked. She met his eyes. He wants the girl. Elias looked toward the cellar. Then he's got to die. Afternoon fell silent. No birds. No wind. Just waiting. Then came a first shot. Not from them. High on the ridge, a warning crack. A bullet tore through the barn roof, inches from Elias's head. He ducked. They've spotted the trail. Sonny darted to the front. They'll flank. Burn the place. Smoke us out. Let him try. Elias gripped the Sharps and climbed to the loft. From the slat and the boards, he saw them. 6 on foot, 4 on horseback, weaving through the brush. One rode with a black duster, long rifle across his lap. Jed Trent. He'd grown bigger, bolder, but the eyes were the same. Greedy. Mean. Elias remembered them in the firelight years ago, leering as they dragged his wife into the dirt. He'd buried those memories deep. Now they clawed back. He exhaled slow. Crack. The first rider dropped, chest burst wide, horse screaming beneath him. The others dove for cover. Elias reloaded without blinking. Sonny dragged the kitchen table to the front door, flipped it for cover. Gunfire exploded outside, wild, unfocused. She fired twice, both shots sharp and low. A man screamed. Elias fired again. Another kill. They moved faster now, ducking, shouting. Smoke poured in from the rear window. They lit the shed. Sonny shouted, "Let it burn." but the smoke curled fast, thick and black. "Lena," Elias shouted. "I'm here," came the reply from the cellar. "I'm listening." "Close the hatch." More gunfire. A bullet splintered the doorframe, slicing across Sonny's arm. She hissed, pressed cloth to it, then looked up with fire in her eyes. Elias climbed down, laid the rifle aside. "They're splitting," he said. "Two going left. They'll try the back." "I'll handle them," Sonny said. "No," Elias said. "You stay with Lena. I'm not leaving you out there." He looked at her long and hard, then handed her the revolver. "You got 6 shots. Make 'em count." He vanished into the trees. The woods swallowed him whole. Sonny turned, breathing hard, pressed her back to the wall. Outside, the footsteps came closer, slow, creeping. A man's voice. I saw the girl. She tensed. "You can give her up. We'll let the rest of you walk." "Lies." "Say something," he shouted. The reply was a shot, straight through the door. Then silence. Sonny ducked low, crouching by the cellar hatch. "Lena, be ready." "I already am." In the woods, Elias crawled through pine needles, eyes fixed forward. He spotted them. 2 men, crouched behind a boulder, arguing in whispers. Too loud. He stepped from behind them. One turned too slow. The knife hit his throat. The second lunged, but Elias sidestepped, cracked the rifle stock across his skull, and dragged both bodies into the brush. Then he heard it. A girl's scream. "Lena." He ran. Cabin in sight. Smoke everywhere. Back door blown open. Inside, chaos. Jed held Lena by the arm. Pistol pressed her head. Sonny stood across from him, revolver raised, but her hands trembled. "Drop it," Jed snarled. Elias stepped into the doorway, blood on his coat. Jed didn't see him. "I'll count to 3, Jed said. 1. A whisper of movement. 2 sounds, a thump and a slash. Jed froze. Blood poured down his neck. Sonny stood behind him, tomahawk buried deep. Lena pulled free, stumbling backward. Jed dropped to his knees, choking. Elias stepped forward. Sonny wrenched the blade free, let him fall. He hit the floor without a sound. Lena, trembling, reached for Elias's hand. He knelt, pulled her close. Outside, the storm broke, but it was the quiet kind, the kind that comes after judgment. The shovel struck frozen earth with a dull thud. Elias drove the blade down again, breath fogging in the cold dawn. The grave was narrow and deep, just wide enough for a man like Jed Trent. No marker, no cross, just pine and dirt. Sonny stood near the edge of the trees, arms folded, watching the road. Blood still stained her leggings, but her hands were steady now. The tomahawk hung loose at her hip. Lena sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a thick wool coat, her face turned toward the sun. She didn't speak. Her fingers traced the edge of her boots, slow and methodical. The wind shifted. Elias paused. A rider approached down the ridge trail. One man, no rifle out, hands raised. Sonny reached for the revolver. "Wait," Elias said, voice gravel low. The rider slowed to a trot. Dust clung to his coat. His face looked worn, but not cruel. He stopped 10 feet out. "Name's Walker. I ride dispatch for the Trent mining office." Elias said nothing. Walker swallowed. "I was sent to check on Jed." Elias nodded toward the grave. Walker's face went pale. "I figured." More silence. Walker glanced at the cabin, then at Sonny, then back at Elias. "Look, I ain't here to make trouble. We'll get back. Nobody wants war with your kind." "My kind," Elias said flatly. "Veterans. Off-grid folks. Ghosts." Elias stepped forward. "This land's mine." Walker raised his hands again. "We ain't contesting it." Sonny moved beside Elias. Eyes hard. "You don't come back." Walker nodded. "Understood." He turned the horse, rode off without another word. Later, Elias sat with Sonny on the porch. Lena lay in the grass nearby, her face turned to the breeze. "She'll remember all of it," Sonny said quietly. "She already does," Elias answered. They didn't speak for a long time. By mid-spring, the grass had overtaken the blood. The cabin stood stronger now, patched, reinforced, cleaner. Sonny planted herbs near the west wall. Lena walked the edge of the ridge each morning, guided by a carved stick and the sound of the birds. One evening, A hawk circled overhead as she stood on the hill alone. She tilted her face upward, smiling at the wind. Higher, she whispered, as if talking to the sky itself. Far below, two strangers rode along the old trail, cloaks flapping in the breeze. One pointed toward the ridge. That's where it happened. The other nodded. That's what they say. You ever seen him? No, but I heard the tale. They stopped listening to the wind. He lived alone with a blind girl, see. Folks say he was a soldier, or a killer, or something worse. But he found a Comanche girl bleeding in the woods and brought her home. Just like that. Didn't ask who she'd run from. Didn't ask who'd follow. Why? Some say it was guilt. Others say it was love. And the men who came, killed them all. Everyone. With traps. With steel. With one bullet to the eye. Some say he never missed. Not once. Name. Elias Boone. No law came for him. Law died before they got there. And the rest, well, the railroad packed up and left. That ridge stayed quiet after. They turned their horses, rode off. Atop the ridge, Lena raised her face to the breeze again. Behind her, the hawk wheeled once more, then vanished into the gold of the sky.